You know that feeling when you find a book so rich in detail, you can almost hear the rustle of the silk gowns and the murmur of secrets behind secret doors. That is exactly how I felt while reading Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait. This is book number 2 in my 100 books reading challenge this year. If you haven't already watched that video, that is going to be in the description box below. This particular book I picked up from my local library, and it's a thick book, 550 pages book. It is also a large print edition, so usually it comes in like 450 books edition. And this is not to say I did not find it hard to read this one. And even with that, what are my honest thoughts about the book? The introduction, the plot, the writing, the highlights, the lowlights, everything I'm gonna go into this video. So just be a little bit patient, grab a cup of coffee or grab a cup of tea, and we'll just dive right into it. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Pooja at A Book by the Window. I hope you guys are doing good. I hope you guys are reading good. As the title of this video suggests, today I'm bringing in a new book review, my recent read, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. By the end of the video, if you do like the video, please like, share, subscribe. If you want to support the channel, please make sure you engage with the content, because this is how YouTube knows that this is quality worthy content and it will show it to more viewers. I do see that more than 80% of the people who are watching my videos are not yet subscribed to my channel. I just want to encourage all of you to do that, because I do a lot of hard work here and it would mean a lot to me if I have more subscribers. You know the deed, you know how the algorithm works, and even with that, I'm just trying to do my best to bring in quality content to the best of my ability. That is my part. Your part is probably to support the channel and just get the discussion going, keep the ball rolling, and this is what I ask of you today. Without further ado, let's get into the review though. The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell is the kind of book that lingers with you long after you are done reading it. It's like a painting you can't stop staring at. Even the cover of the book is so pretty. The direct eye contact that the portrait is doing with you is certainly urging you to pick this book up as soon as you can. If you're already familiar by Maggie O'Farrell's work, you would know her by the very popular book Hamnet. I haven't been able to pick that book up. I do have it in my shelf, but when I found this copy in my local library, I was very tempted to pick it up just because of the author's name, to be honest with you. And I feel I did justice to the reading and I quite understood what the hype is about, specifically around the writer's ability to make you feel things, to bring a narrative that is both historic but gives an angle to it which is so unlooked by the normal eye, a feminist take, all of the elements that I quite enjoy reading about. And I was not sorry by the end of it that I spent a lot of time reading this book up. This book in particular is a reimagining of the life of Lucrezia de Medici, daughter of Cosimo de Medici. Medici family is one of the very famous, influential families of Florence, Tuscany, around that area, and they were very rich, as you would know by reading history. And as history will go down, they would have these very strong associations amongst family and getting their kids married, getting their daughters married to influential dukes and aristocrats and cardinals was one of the thing that was very popular, very common in that time. While we understand that it was just a political move by Lucrezia's father to get her married, we see the story through her eyes, how her spirit as a woman is going to be transformed when she enters marriage, how she's very dependent on her husband for everything, for an autonomy. And even though these stories will go down in history just as stories, just as political affluence, the author Maggie O'Farrell gives it a different take and pauses us to think about the impact of these decisions over individuals. If you will read history, Lucrezia is a young Roman duchess who goes down in history as someone who was rumored to be murdered by her husband. So while reading this book, you're gonna have to think of this book as a mix of historical fiction and psychological thriller. Without dilly-dallying a lot, I'm gonna get into the plot of the book. As I mentioned before, this is a reimagining, so you will see that there are two timelines that are represented in the book. One is the present day when Lucrezia is in the court of Alfonso and she is living her daily life as his duchess. Second is a timeline that goes in the past where she's being brought up as a kid in her father's castle, father's house, and her mother's instruction to her, and her undilated, unwavered spirit even as a little child. The book opens up with a chilling realization. Lucrezia already knows that her husband is going to kill her. And from that moment on, the tension doesn't let up. You as readers are constantly left to wonder, how did we get to this moment? What is going to happen in the next step? What happened in this marriage to bring things up to this dark place? Now, Lucrezia is not your typical Renaissance woman. She is curious, she is artistic, she is very high-spirited, and she wants to paint, she wants to express herself, she wants to be a person of her own in this world. So you can very well assume that she is also very adventurous and rebellious. But what struck me as very different is the author's input, the author's insight into her inner world and her inner thoughts. You are made to feel her inner inhibitions, her fears, her loneliness, and a quiet resilience that she carries within herself. I personally was left to wonder many times while reading the book, what would I have done if I were in her place? What would I have done if I were in her place? What would I have done if I were in her place? Kind of reminds me of reading The Palace of Illusion, another epic saga about the Queen Draupadi and her struggles, her internal turmoils about her place in that society and that hierarchy. Now let's talk about the writing of the book. The writing of the book is always something that I deeply connect with, and I look in a particular book, and this book did not disappoint me. The writing is probably the most beautiful part of the book, and I can totally get what the hype is around the author. I cannot wait to read Hamlet because it is so well revered in the bookish community that a lot of people have quoted it as modern day Shakespeare-like text. And I totally understand how difficult it is to bring a different narrative to an already established narrative in history, in literature. So it's saying a lot that the author did a really good job of making the readers feel a story that was buried in the books of history, and it brings to the surface so many internal subplots that must have taken place in that time era. I also loved reading about the history, about the various descriptions about the castle, about Roman history, and I have been lucky enough to visit Rome, Florence, and it's a different world out there. So connecting those dots and reading about the vivid descriptions of the art, of the clothes, of the paintings, of artists, of dukes, everything just really spoke to me. I really enjoyed drawing a picture in my mind, and the writing itself did help. It was not very confusing. It is definitely a convoluted style of writing, not very straightforward, not something that is meant for a beginner, but once you take an effort to understand the text, take an effort to be patient with it and draw a certain picture in your mind, you're gonna find it that it is more of an experience, more of a journey rather than just very cookie cutter thrillers, twist and turn. It is a very patient book for the reader to sit and get to the crux of and understand the nuances and the feeling of the characters. The characters are very well drawn, especially Lucrezia and Alfonso. Both of them have very opposite personalities, and there is never an attempt to bring them together to help them understand each other, even as spouses, which is something that I was very uncomfortable with, because I just get uncomfortable with the idea that you have to spend your entire life with someone who you do not even understand. So that idea was so uncomfortable, but I feel the author did a very good job in bringing that uncomfortableness to life, and you're made to sit with it. So comfortable or not comfortable, you are made to feel and reflect on your life choices and the choices that Lucrezia is going to make. Kudos to the author for making me feel like that. Moving on to the highlight of the book. There are so many good things to talk about the book, but I'm gonna just touch on the top highlights for me. First off, the author Maggie O'Farrell does a very good job of combining beauty with real danger. The lush description of court practices and the vivid and adventurous life that these dukes and duchesses are trying to live is a particular contrast with the dark undertone of political alliances and personal betrayals. This happens so often in politics, in the political ladder, and more so when kings and queens were constantly killing each other, was at daggerheads with each other. And now we live in a society where we do not need to dwell on that particular area, but it is ever so present, the survival of the fittest. So it is a very beautiful contrast between the two facets of court life. Second, the character development. Lucrezia is someone who starts off with being a very curious, young, naive girl who will grow up into mature woman, accepting of her reality and the life around her. At the time when she gets married, she's only 13-year-old, and how her life is gonna be defined, she's expected to bear children to the king, or die during childbirth, or just be constantly scared about her safety in the court, being in such high position where stakes are so high. So that character development is very well drawn by the author, and she's the star of the show. She is very well expressed. She is portrayed in a very nuanced light as a human more than just a duchess or a princess. You will always find yourself trying to fit her shoes, trying to understand what would you do in her place. And that is the sign of a really good writing and sign of a very good character development. Second is the character of Alfonso. You will see that Alfonso is portrayed as someone who on the face will be very sweet to you, will never outrightly say what he wants, but if he doesn't get what he wants, he expresses it in subtleties, but he's very assertive in his stance. He knows his position as a man and as the king in the court, in the society, and what decisions he has to make to carry on the duchy, carry on being the Duke of Ferrara. And what will he do? How low he will stoop? This is just a description of that, but his internal character and his internal darkness is also something that is brought to life, that is brought to surface, and the author doesn't mince any words, although these are facts that are already in history about these rulers. So the author is very brave in rewriting a narrative the way she wanted to about the Duke. Number 3, the tension in the book. The constant contrasting characters always conflict, and you are always thinking about Lucrezia's safety. This is how high the tension is always between the two characters. You are constantly on edge, you're constantly thinking that I want Lucrezia to be safe even though she has her own voice, but you also do not want to see her spirit die. So what is the right way forward? Constantly thinking about it, and you're constantly also thinking whether she'll die, how will she die, what is going to be her fate. Something that is drawn out in the first chapter itself, that she feels that she's gonna die. So how is she going to die is something that hovers in your mind constantly, and you cannot take away from the fact. It is a brilliant style of writing where the facts are totally presented to you in the beginning itself, and then when you read about it in past, you are left to connect the dots and interpret it on your own. So these 3 things were definitely top highlights for me. No book is without its critique, so I cannot leave this review without talking about the lowlights for me. Certain readers will definitely feel that this is very slow paced and there is a lot of descriptions in between, that kind of extends the length of the novel, and I also felt slightly after the second half that the book is dragging a bit, and it's just relying on the vivid descriptions in the quote and not particularly getting down to business. Definitely something that makes you frustrated here and there, so I'm going to highlight it as something that some readers might struggle with. Also, the narration of the book. While the present tense narration worked for me, the story goes in present tense in 1500s. Some readers have reported, and I see this with a critique, that kind of writing can be particularly boxed and suffocating to some readers because they do not understand the timeline and they are left to feel that they are in that century, but you are not, right? You would like to read it in past tense. So something to keep in mind if you are thinking of picking this book up. Number 3 is the ending. The ending kind of is very abrupt and something that I did not expect, to be honest, and it's not very clear in the text that this is what happens. I have to read fan theories later and read other people's review to come to the bottom of what actually happens. So I would have enjoyed it a bit more if it was written in a way where it's very clear, it is left to interpretation, but also it is very clear that this is what happens. Now I just have to rely on people's opinion that maybe probably this is the kind of ending that the author wanted to give Lucrezia. And yeah, that is all fine and dandy. Also, without giving any spoilers, there's one particular part of the ending that did not sit right with me. Maybe when I have a spoiler-free review discussion about this book, I will go into it, but you will know what I'm talking about once you read this book. If you have already read this book, please let me know in the comment section below if you are getting what I'm trying to say. Drum roll, final thoughts. My final rating of this book is 4 out of 5 stars because I did enjoy reading it. I'm also trying to get in the habit of reading thicker books, not just pick up smaller, thinner books. So this was definitely one that tested my patience, and I also found it engaging. I did not find it boring, even with the thickness, even with the vivid description, historical text. A difficult read, definitely. Would I recommend it? Of course. If it is a 4-star read for me, I highly recommend that you find some time to I highly recommend you get your hands on this one, and you're gonna find yourself just going back in history and reading stories about the description of the fabric that the Duchess wears, or the making of a portrait in those times, how it is commissioned and how there is a market for artists, how everything happens according to a particular rule book. Even for people who are so influential, so affluent, they make or break a country, and in that, what is an individual opinion, what is the human aspects of these rulers. I would highly recommend because it lets you travel through Renaissance period, and it also gives you a certain feminist take into the stories that passed during that time. I found myself researching a lot about her character in real life, and it opened doors for me to understand more about the times. As a matter of fact, there is a mention of her portrait in the book, which I found out that this is something that the marriage portrait doesn't exist today of the Duchess, but there are different portraits of her in different galleries. One of it is Uffizi Gallery in Florence. I have been to Florence, but I skipped going to this very renowned gallery just because I wanted to visit it with my partner when we come to it whenever we can. And there is a mention of the Uffizi Gallery in the afternote by the author that you can find some replicas of her portrait from that time in that gallery, and I'm super excited to do that whenever I get around to it. So I like this kind of connecting the dots and feeling that I want to know more about history, and a really good historical fiction is going to lead you to that path, is going to lead you to that rabbit hole, and I'm not sorry about that. I definitely recommend you pick up this book if you are already thinking of it, or if you are a fan of Maggie O'Farrell already. Anyone watching this video have already read Hamnet? Do let me know what were your thoughts about that book, because I am thinking desperately to pick up that book as well after I am done reading this. I will not do it this month because I have other books from other different genres to get into, but probably when I get around to doing it, I'm not going to skimp, I'm not going to be scared, I'm not going to just keep that aside as I have done before, and I will get straight into it. These are my honest thoughts about Maggie O'Farrell's The Marriage Portrait, and with that we are at the end of the video. If you like this video, please like it, share it with your friends and families, comment down below if you have read this book or what is your current read. This was my second book of this year and I'm very happy that I'm off to a very good start. And with that said, I hope you guys are excited about the next book I have in my mind, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, happy reading.